I'm Gabe Urrutia, author of Miami Cocktails, professor at the FIU Chapman School of Hospitality, and wine, beer, and spirits educator. I'm traveling the United States searching for the best food and drink while smoking Davidoff cigars with friends. Join me for Time with Tastemakers. Hi, I'm Gabe Urrutia with Time with Tastemakers, and today we're in lovely downtown Miami to check out Jaguar Sun. Come on in. We are so lucky to be here in downtown Miami with Will Thompson, owner, operator of the award-winning Jaguar Sun. So we're lucky to be here because around a year ago, we weren't here. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of how we got back to the original Jaguar Sun location and where were you before this?
Sure. Yeah, so I think everybody had a weird year. We had a very weird year. We closed, I think, just 24 hours before the official mandate went out. I think you were there. You were there, like literally the night. Yeah. Whether or not we all fully remember, it's another question. But we closed up shop and we tried to figure it out, same as everybody else, right? We did a million different versions of to-go food. We were cooking for hospitals, for frontline workers for a little while, which felt great. But eventually, you know, those resources sort of dried up. We figured out that takeout just wasn't us, right? Like, we offer an experience, we offer a service product, we offer all these things that you really can't package up, right? That you have to kind of live and be in and be a part of. And we got to this point after 4 or 5 weeks where it felt really bad. And we knew that if we closed the doors and we said we'll come back when we're on the other side of this, that those doors might never open again, right? So we wanted to keep going, but we couldn't really figure out, like, what's the path? What do we do? Because everything we were thinking of, everything that we could find on Instagram that other people were doing, it just wasn't working for us. So we ended up going into a different neighborhood about 5 miles north. We found a landlord up there who was really looking for something and who was gracious enough to share this incredible space with us. So this big, beautiful kind of empty lot called Lot 6. It's centered around a massive banyan tree, right? And you've got the beautiful hanging lights, and it doesn't really have anything in the way of restaurant infrastructure, but it's got a couple of sinks, it's got a couple of restrooms, it's got this tree.
Just enough.
That is what you need. And so we said, hey, can we throw a dinner party up here? We can keep the tables really far apart. We can keep them nice and socially distant. We can keep our staff safe. We can keep our guests safe. And he said yes, and we did it. So I think we got up there my business partner always corrects me, my memory's not so good, but it was about 100 years ago. I want to say that was June. Could have even been a little bit earlier than that. And we started with a taco night, right? We wanted everything to be really kind of democratic, and we were all kind of broke, and we sort of thought other people would be kind of broke as well. And we wanted something that people would be able to do a few times a night. And we did it for 3 or 4 weeks, and it was really great. We were kind of figuring out how to be a restaurant again, right? Without all the infrastructure, with having to prep down here and having to take everything all the way up there. But it felt like we weren't quite connecting all the way, right? Like, the guests were there, they wanted to be out, but what we were realizing more and more is that people weren't going out 3 times a week, right? Like, you've been cooped up for 4 or 5 months at this point, but it's really hard to go out, right? Like, you've got to find a sitter, you've got to make sure your sitter has gotten a test and that you trust, right? Like, it's a nightmare.
Horrible.
And so when people went out, they really wanted to go out, right? So tacos here, it's maybe not the same as a city like LA that's got a kind of a culture built around that, right? Where it's like, maybe that is a special occasion. We wanted something that was more celebratory, right? That, like, Miami would understand, that would work well for the place that we are, that would work well for us, that would play to our strengths and play to what our guests were telling us they really wanted. And that's where this sort of, like, our take on a modern American steakhouse really came from, right? Like, we wanted to do a style of food that everybody knows is fancy, right? That everybody loves, right? Like, I don't even eat meat. I was talking to a good friend who works in the spirits industry as well last night, and she doesn't eat meat, and her favorite restaurant to go to is a steakhouse as well, right? Like, because it's not, as much as it is, of course, it centers around dinner, it's the experience as a whole.
The vibe.
Right, that's it, right? Like, we know it's fun, we know it's festive, you can dress up if you want to, you don't have to if you don't want to, which I think is perfect for Miami, right? Like, it can be fancy, it can be casual, it's whatever you need it to be. And we found almost immediately that was like, we had really stumbled onto something, right? Like, the visible connection that our guests were having with what we were offering was incredible. And so for the next 8 months, we ran a steakhouse 3 nights a week, outdoors, no real restaurant infrastructure. We cooked everything on an open fire because we didn't really have much in the way of electricity. But we saw a few hundred guests a night. And when it popped, it really popped. I think you were there for a couple of our more memorable nights.
I honestly feel it's one of the bigger success stories of what we saw during the pandemic down here in Miami. But more so than everything else, you guys rescued a lot of us. When we were kind of didn't know where to go, we had to be outdoors. Again, family and babysitters and nannies and anything in between, you know, our parents, making sure we're keeping everyone safe.
Yeah.
We had a place where we can safe social distance, enjoy just this incredible culture of food, people and cocktails, and that was so big for us. Tell us that story, maybe that last day of coming back here and realizing that you need to come back home. And your home is right here in the heart of downtown Miami.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful, incredible thing, but it was physically, it was so difficult, right? Like trying to build a restaurant where a restaurant isn't every night, it's a full-on, you know, soup to nuts event, right? And you've done a million events, like you know how hard that is, right? When you have to build everything up, you have to strike it all down.
It's like a wedding every single day.
Every single day. You have to build the whole bar, you have to break the whole bar down, you have to build the whole kitchen, you have to break the whole kitchen down. So it got to this point where it's like, yeah, we were still connecting, guests were still excited, we were still busy, but we were asking so much of the staff, we were asking so much of ourselves that it was clear that we were getting to a point where we had maybe run our course for this iteration of Lot 6, of that pop-up. We also got to a point where our staff was fully vaccinated, right? So it's like, cool, this is really the metric that we have internally for when do we feel like we can go back inside is when are our people going to be able to be safe indoors. And we felt like we got there. I think we got the timing really, really right because I think it shot up about 100 degrees since we closed.
My goodness.
The next day, you know, we got pretty good up there with dealing with the rain, with getting these big, massive tents out over tables really quickly. But there's also, you know, it's Miami in the summer, right? Like there's a point at which being outside, being exposed is just too much. And that was kind of the moment where we're like, great, let's go back, let's do it. Let's go back to our bones, to our DNA. Like we are still an experiential product, but we can do it in a way that's much more true to what the business originally was, right?
And I have to mention, just when we talk about something that's experiential, you took a lot of people to this area of Miami that they otherwise have never been to, right?
Yeah. There's, especially the New Yorkers, there's always this like kind of look of relief, right? Because we're in a neighborhood that is, when we're up there, that's very much up and coming, right?
For sure.
Hasn't quite up and came just yet. So everybody walks in and they're like, I really did not think I was in the right place, which is, I don't know, I like that feeling a lot.
It's like
right?
a thrill of discovery for me.
Yeah, that little moment of reveal.
You
right?
start reading into it and it's like a historical area, and then, you know, it's funny because it just brings me back, like, if a Miami person did that, okay, cool, they already knew about Little River.
Yeah.
But you're not originally a Miami guy, you come from the Northeast.
No, 3 years now. I think it's like 10 more years in Miami and you guys will consider like I actually live here, you know?
But you and Chef Carrie have built an award-winning, very, very well-loved bar and restaurant here in the heart of downtown Miami. Tell us, what made you come to Miami?
You know, I got a little sick of winter. No. I still like winter. I think I still have space for that. The year before I came down here, I had a travel job. All right, so I was based in New York. I was on the road all the time. I was on the road, you know, 25, 26, 27 days out of the month, and I was going all over the country, and everywhere I went just felt so saturated, right? Like, I don't want to be the next cocktail bar in Nashville. There's too many cocktail bars in Nashville, right? Like,
good ones.
Do I want? Yeah,
Amazing ones.
totally. No disrespect. Like, do I want to open another cocktail bar in Williamsburg? Like, I don't, right? Like, there's no. What's the point? What's the point to be in the 1,000th guy in that line, right? In a place that doesn't need you. And then you get to Miami, and it's like you see these amazing young people. The quality of life is so good. And you poke around and it's like, there's stuff, but there's not this version of stuff, right? So this felt like the one place in the country where it's like, yeah, quality of life's amazing. It's a great place to live. And it doesn't feel like there's an oversaturation of this kind of like service-oriented bar, restaurant, whatever you want to call us. And I think we saw, certainly over the course of the last year, a lot of New Yorkers come to that same conclusion, right?
100%.
And we see a lot of these big established restaurants coming to Miami and seeing like, wow, there's something going on here. You know, we're small enough that we were able to sneak in a little bit before those guys. some of them. But it's an incredible moment. It's an incredible, I think, point in Miami's continued culinary evolution to see this big influx of talent from all over kind of show up like right at the same time.
We always like to say we made it, and then now it's like, did we
the city
really
of
make
tomorrow,
it now?
right?
I think we did.
We'll see. We'll see.
One big thing about Jaguar Son, the food is phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%.
Chef Carrie, who's back there now prepping, just makes incredible food that you can just walk in. This is your neighborhood bar.
Yeah.
But you're getting just incredible food, right? You are the host with the most, but you also put your flag in the sand as this almost kind of like a rum connoisseur. And when you actually walk into Jaguar Son, you have one of the best selections of rum in all of Miami,
sure.
Which is incredible to see, right? And the thing is that rum is not only served in a glass, it's served with a side of Will Thompson's education, right?
If you want it. We try not to force that on anybody.
But I think that's so important. And I mention that because when I come here and I talk to your bar team and just the team overall, like just the culture here is completely different than what you see in a lot of spots. Tell us a little bit about culture. Tell us a little bit about rum and how it all ties in together with the food.
That's in 4 words, right? Yeah. That's a tough one to answer. I mean, I think the culture is, we found a lot of people that care about each other and care about the work that they do. And I think that is absolutely our highest priority when we're looking at bringing somebody onto the team. It's like, are they going to fit into that, right? Like, is this somebody that cares about guests naturally? Is this somebody that wants to take care of their coworkers naturally? Because I think that's stuff that you can't really train.
And I think, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I think you've mentioned this, you're like, I'll take someone that's actually with less experience
every time.
So I can build them up.
Every time, right? Like it's, you need people who already know how to do it, because you can't do all that training yourself, right? Like you need the team to be able to train the team. That's super, super important. But if we do anything that starts to damage that culture, we run the risk of the whole thing spinning out, right? So that's first and foremost is just that kind of like natural hospitality, right? Like, does this person want to host the party every night, right? Like, not that they need to be the center of the party, but do the people on our team want to help host it? And
that's cool.
We do have a lot of rum, and I think us knowing a lot about that stuff is a great hook for a lot of people.
I mean, I mentioned rum.
No, we love rum.
Overall,
we love
right?
rum. I would definitely say there's a focus on rum. We definitely want to make sure that we're well-rounded, right? Like we have great examples from all sorts of spirit categories, but rum is definitely a focus here. I think it's important that everybody who works here really be able to teach if that's asked, right? But we're never going to try and be preachy about it, right? This isn't a place where you sit down and somebody, like myself, pushes up their glasses and is like, well, in 19th century, right? Like that's there if you want it, but so's a dirty joke, so's a shot, so's a high five, right? Like there's different ways to connect with different guests. And I think the fascination with rum is just because it's really, really good. And I think a really high source of value, right? Like it is still an underappreciated category. So we're 100%. Able to buy incredible stuff for less money than I think it's really worth, which is great. I think that's the job of the bartender a lot of the time. And that helps us kind of throw this party for some folks. But it's, at the end of the day, it's a neighborhood bar. Like
it's
you're right? Like
which is the most important part.
Absolutely. If you can't come in and get a great drink for a fair price from a friendly face, we're doing something wrong. And everything on top of that is extra.
Tell us a little bit. I'm here. We're gonna smoke these Millennium Robustos. But before we do that, this is a full-bodied cigar. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love it. You can enjoy it outside. It's nice and warm outside right now. I'll take off my blazer. But tell us a little bit about your thought process when creating these cocktails for South Florida, Miami, and considering the weather, considering we love to smoke cigars, we love to play dominoes, we love to be outdoors.
Same. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you can't ever forget about the climate you're in, right? It's going to dictate delicious, and there's nothing on like a hot, sticky night like rum and a cigar, right? Like that can be something with lots of acid in it, that could be a really nice tart citrusy cocktail, but it could also be something like what you're drinking, like a jailbreak on there, which is our, sort of our version of a very rummy old fashioned with a few different spirits in it, a little bit of coffee in there as well. And I think sort of the thing we're always thinking about when we're making new drinks is trying to make a normal, delicious cocktail that's just got enough new flavor in it that you you're still responding. There's still some novelty there, right? But it's inside the structure and inside what I would think of as like kind of the ethic of like a normal drink. And I mean normal in like the best way, right? Like a martini is normal, a margarita is normal. And like those are real drinks. Like those are the best. Everything else is kind of like maybe playing catch up to that stuff, right? So we want to be as good as a martini, as an old fashioned, as a margarita, and just layer in some new flavors that give you pause for a second, that are rewarding for a drinker, especially when they're trying it for the first or second time. And then hopefully we go through a few of those menu cocktails, and then you get back to what you're gonna drink anyway, right? Like, which is, you know, maybe it's a neat rum, maybe you're an old fashioned, whatever. But it needs to be really based in that quality of wanting another one as soon as you're done, right? Like, I think a lot of drinks in a lot of places, you end up with a lot of sugar layered in there, right? And so it maybe tastes great when you straw taste it, but if you actually go out into that bar and you drink that whole cocktail, by the time you finish, you're like, great, my stomach hurts. You know, I don't need that again.
I think Leo at the Nomad, we were doing, I think it was a podcast, if I'm not mistaken, and mentioned, he's like, I think at least 70%, I think he mentioned 80% should be what he mentioned as crushable cocktails.
100%.
And I think that in South Florida is so important,
100%.
right?
People are here to, you know, the Miami drinker is a talented drinker.
They are
It
incredible.
is a long hang, right? And it's like, it's a long, steady hang, and they are not milking those drinks, right?
Tell
like,
us a
people
little
are gonna
bit
get through them.
about that ritual, right? Because you have this incredible menu. So tell me how the food ties into these cocktails, because you talk about, you know, a Miami and kind of really enjoying these cocktails, but I think also it's a little bit more of enjoying the food in, I guess, a slower pace. And I think that's more of a Latin vibe of just kind of getting together. We do shared plates. Everyone's kind of splitting everything. How does that menu play? Tell us a little bit about the menu.
Sure. I mean,
food side.
I think the thing we look for in food is that same kind of quality of like, is it crushable, right? Does a bite just make you immediately want to take another bite? I think one of the things I love about his food so much is that you can, you know, we're making pasta. It's not necessarily super traditional pasta because he doesn't have an Italian background, but it's recognizably like these are pasta dishes that you have at least seen before. But when you get through it at the end, like you're still nice and light. You still go out and dance, right? You still go over to La Trova, fire off another little daiquiri, have yourself a little dance. Yeah. And I think that's hugely important, right? Like it can't be thick, rich, heavy, even if it looks like thick, rich, heavy, because it's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's horrible, right? Like there's stuff you can get away with when it's 30 degrees outside that's like warm and nourishing and comforting that doesn't feel so good when it feels like 90, 94 degrees and about 600% humidity. So I think that kind of like, that crushability is not just for drinks, but it kind of needs to be for food as well. How does that play into the night as a whole? You know, all the stuff's meant to be shared, right? Like food is meant to be shared. A night is meant to be shared. I think we've actually started to err almost to the other side of the spectrum where it's like, it can be a little bit tricky if you just come in by yourself. We have to like think about it for a second to be like, great, how are we gonna get just you dinner?
I love that.
Because it's so much of like, you know, I want you to see this stuff and be like, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that, right? Like we're not appetizer entree. Like the steakhouse was, and it was amazing. And that was a fun thing to kind of return to because restaurants have gone off in another direction for so long. But I think the food here really does have that visual of like, I need a little bit of everything because this all looks too good to not try.
With the cocktails, I want to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
You are such an important part of this community. So first and foremost, cheers and thank you.
Where are my manners?
Is there anything else coming up that you can mention to us that you feel that you can share with us?
There's more to come. There's more to come. You know, I think I've learned about restaurants as a whole, and I think everything in Miami that I've seen so far is that, you know, it does no good to talk about things a little bit too early. Jaguar Sun's an incredible restaurant. When we were up at Lot 6, we were in a space that was 10, 12 times bigger than this, and I think we've really grown as a restaurant and grown as a team. And I think we look to 2022 as a real opportunity to
you heard it here first.
To grow and
more to come.
Continue to see what there is to offer down here.
Oh man, we're so lucky to have you. So thank you again. I think we're just gonna kind of go out and enjoy these Millennium Robustos, and I'm gonna enjoy with a little bit of the jailbreak. So cheers.